You're watching Sunday Sound Off with Frank Boal.
Welcome back to Sunday Sound Off, and our first hot topic of the night. I'm just being a little bit of a punk. That was Ned Yost today. A quote from him on not announcing his starting rotation. Little gamesmanship here, TJ, or what's Ned's purpose here?
I think he's just being coy. I think it's easy to infer what his rotation is going to look like based off of what we know about these pitchers. Edinson Volquez so far has been their most consistent pitcher, so I expect him to get in game 1. Then Johnny Cueto in game 2 so that you can avoid putting him on the road, and then your Dono Ventura in game 3, and the rotation goes like so with Chris Young being your 4th starter. But, you know, this is just Ned Yost kind of being what he's become since last year's postseason run. He's a guy who likes to joke around a little bit with the media, and I don't think this is anything other than that. Les, what do you think?
I think he's got an agenda here that he's trying to deflect the situation with Cueto. He's probably tired of answering questions about it. It's obvious, like TJ said, he's not going to start Cueto on the road because he's miserable on the road. We had new life hope when Cueto pitched last time at home and did great, and then he went to Toronto, couldn't handle the pressure, kept the ball up. He's laughing as he's coming off the field, and so I just don't think they want to answer questions. They have to use him because they're here now, but it's still a situation where they want him in game 2, get him out of the rotation for the road, and then get him back. And sadly, this could go south if we get 2 bad starts out of Cueto because they're both going to be at home. But I'm hoping one of those starts is good.
That's a very good point right there. I didn't think about that till just now. Saran, what do you think?
Yeah, it's obvious, right, Les? It's obvious. Just obvious, like in Game 6, you go only to Herrera and Davis. But yet, what do we see? We saw Madsen brought in there. I do think you're right, Les. I think he's tired of, and I think that's a great point, he's tired of answering questions about Johnny Cueto. Doesn't want to go through the whole Johnny Cueto circus, and that's why he avoided it. And it better be games 2 and 6. But Ned better get to the bullpen quicker, and he better stick with the big boys. Look, Herrera and Davis are really the only 2 guys he can count on. I know Hochevar's get on a lot of people's minds. I'm not convinced that he can definitely count on Luke Hochevar. He's got 2 guys, and when he gets an opportunity to win, when he's got a lead or is tied, he's got to go get that starting pitcher probably early in the 6th or before he ever gets on the mound in the 6th inning, and it's something he wasn't doing. Look, this series against the Blue Jays could have been boom Yosted with the way things were going with him not getting his starting pitching out of there and going to Madsen. The team bailed him out. Now he's got to bail them out and push the right buttons in this series.
All right, TJ, we've got a question on Twitter. It's from Pam. How many games will Johnny Cueto pitch? Will the Royals win those games?
He'll pitch 2 if they have to go to, obviously, if they have to go to his second start. But I expect him at home to pitch well if you're keeping within those first 5 innings. And I think as Seren said, kind of going back to that last point, just because Ned Yost got away with making some bad decisions when it comes to leaving pitchers in or taking guys out, doesn't mean he should repeat those mistakes. Just because you win in spite of those errors doesn't mean you need to repeat them. So I think that's definitely a big concern of how he manages his bullpen, and I would have a quick hook with Cueto, but I still think that he will perform well given the circumstances at home.
Okay, Les, we'll start with you on this one, our second hot topic of the evening. The Chiefs finally win another game. What do you expect from them the rest of the season?
Well, I'm happy for all those people that were dressed as empty seats out at Arrowhead today. That was an interesting thing to show up for. It's great for Chiefs fans, and I'm happy for you. And you saw some improvement, and Alex Smith throwing better, and the defense playing a little bit, the line playing a little bit better. But look, they're 2-5. If you go look at who they should beat the rest of the season, at best, they're going to go 6-3 on games they probably should win, but still, that gets us back to, I believe, if my math is correct, to 8-8. I think last time we talked about it, I was thinking 8-8, and now I'm hoping for 8-8. So yes, there are great signs. It was really good to see. It was good to see Alex Smith play better, but again, they're also going to face tougher competition. They're facing a Steelers team that has a young quarterback. They've had injuries, and they're falling apart themselves, and they're going to have a miserable year, and they lost Roethlisberger. So let's get excited that they won a game, the second game since opening day. However, it's the Steelers, and it's just not a measurable thing because they're not a good team.
Saran, what do you think? If you hear, let's say 8-8, they'll just ruin your draft pick at that point with no hope for a playoff or anything else at that point.
Yeah, and I think that's what's so frustrating for Chiefs fans is like, okay, some superfluous wins. Look, unless you're going to finish up 9-1 or, 8-1 down the stretch. What's really the point? And I don't think they're going to do that. Look, they've beaten Brian Hoyer and Landry Jones. Forget about naming off the teams. Brian Hoyer and Landry Jones. Unless third-string quarterbacks and, guys who probably shouldn't even be starting in the NFL are going to proliferate their schedule the rest of the way, then it's not going to get appreciably better. They have an issue at quarterback. He played better. He's still nickel and dimes everything behind the line of scrimmage. His touchdown throws still come well outside of the end zone. In fact, I don't even know when the last time he threw the ball into the end zone was. So congratulations. It was a good win. The offensive line was better. They made some strides, but they're not going anywhere long term with this group right now.
TJ?
So with this kind of situation where you look at your opponent and you say they're not very good, and you look at your record and you say that's not very good, well, where were the improvements? Why did they win this game when they lost the 5 previous to it? A lot of it had to do with execution. A lot of it had to do with not getting turnovers. A lot of it had to do with committing too many penalties. Well, they cleaned up the penalties on offense. Outside of the 2 penalties that were away from the play after the play, they didn't have any penalties on offense. And I think that was a big move forward for that offense. But, you look at the remainder of the schedule, they don't play that many great teams from here on out, so they don't have to play an elite quarterback or somebody who they know is definitively better than they are. It's doable, way more doable than I think the early start or the early portion of the schedule was. But ultimately, I think they may just end up ruining their draft pick, like you said.
Sharon, let's get to you on this one. We got another question coming up. K-Nell has a question about the Chiefs. Will the Chiefs win more than 4 games? And if they do, will that put them out of the #1 draft pick?
Yeah, they'll win more than 4 games, and they won't win the #1 draft. They won't have the #1 draft pick, despite me losing a bet with T.J. Carpenter a number of years ago when he guaranteed it, and sure enough, they backed their way all the way to it. Now, they're not going to get there. Look, they did good things this week. Their defense did cause turnovers, as T.J. mentioned. Tamba Hali showed more than we've seen recently. He got after the quarterback. If you can turn teams over, you can protect the quarterback a little bit, which moving Eric Fisher over and getting Donald Stevenson out of there and getting Jeff Allen into the lineup certainly helped. They ran the ball. They got touchdowns, not just field goals. Look, I don't want to minimize this. They did a lot of things right, but they're not good enough to go to the postseason. And in the end, yeah, they're going to muddle up the draft pick. And look, but who cares? If they had number 2, 3, 4, 5, who has confidence right now that they're going to hit it out of the park anyway?
And our final hot topic tonight, we all know what's wrong with Kansas. But what is up with K-State and Mizzou? TJ?
Well, Kansas State has way too many injuries, and Missouri's offense is waiting for them in 2016. They're not very good offensively. Jamon Moore has been a disappointment. They do the small things very poorly. Their offensive line is atrocious. I mentioned Jamon Moore. That wide receiving core can't get open, and they've got a true freshman quarterback. You cannot win with that kind of situation. Despite how good their defense is up front, they lack depth on that side of the football as well. So they're building for 2016. We kind of saw that early on with Kansas State, just way too many injuries, and I think we're seeing the last year of Bill Snyder at Kansas State.
Oh, wow. How about that? Les, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to go on that last point, too. I think Bill Snyder's about done. He came back and he really rejuvenated and revitalized that program. But, again, when you have injuries, there's only so much you can do. Even the great Bill Snyder can't nurse those guys back to health when they're not ready. And when you're hurt and you don't have your key guys in key positions, you're going to lose games that you normally would win. On the Missouri side, I think that even though they have a great line of defensive players that play in the NFL, some offensive players that play in the NFL, it seems to me like at MU, they're really a team that's driven around the solidarity of the quarterback position. And when you have Matty Mock, who was okay, he wasn't the greatest quarterback in the world, but he knew how to win sometimes, get suspended, I just think they're a victim of now in-season rebuilding. It's not really going to get any better. They've had baseball scores the last 3 games in a row for a college football team. And so it's time to just let Drew Lock play, get him ready for next year, get him ready for 17, because he's the quarterback of their future if he stays healthy. So K-State's got the injuries, and you feel bad about it. MU's in the midseason rebuild.
All right, thanks, Les. Up next, we're going to get some final thoughts from the panel. It's their time to sound off and anything that's on their minds. You're watching Sunday Sound Off.